welcome to Nightbreed. How are you, man?
Very good. Barely awake. I just got out, crawl out of bed and had a bit of
Yeah.
a long night out, so bear
Uh,
with me.
yeah, no stress, mate. All good. So you guys are returning to Australia soon. The first time since 2019's Progfest. What do you remember about that last Aussie tour?
To be honest, not much. I was so sleep deprived that I barely remember anything. We had these early morning flights every day at like 8 or something, so we had to go to the airport at 5, and we were never in bed before 3. So it
Yeah,
was
well,
literally a week without sleeping at all, and I just remember it in a haze. Good shows, big crowds.
mm,
Like as always in Australia, really good times. But we were so fucking tired that yeah, it was tough. So I'm looking forward to returning in a way where I can actually enjoy it a little bit.
yeah, fair enough, man. So talking about shows, how were your early shows? Like when you guys started out in Berlin, I'm guessing. Is that where you guys were first sort of playing shows?
Yeah, pretty much. The first two ever shows were in Berlin. I remember the first one we kind of organized a little festival because what do you do when you're a new band and you have no fans? You rely on other bands. So we kind of like organized a little festival.
Mm,
And then the second show was at a place called Wild at Heart in Kreuzberg, which is still around. It's kind of like a rockabilly bar,
cool.
but they
Yeah.
did have some heavy shows back then as well. And it has a tiny stage, and it's still going on. There's still shows, and there was a big scandal because I think our bass player's girlfriend was obnoxiously drunk and got in a fight with security, and they threw her out the door and down the stairs, and she got so pissed she called the police, and then the Ocean was the band that calls the cops, and that made it hard for us to get the third show even going because
Mm,
everyone thought we were assholes.
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Um, so your early release, Islands Tides, that's like a 30-minute long song, right? Was that something that you thought the ocean would always be doing when you were starting out, or did you kind of foresee vocals and different, length songs, that sort of thing?
Well, I didn't have a master plan back then, but I guess it shows that I've always been into like quite lengthy tracks and like writing music, not as songs actually, but as compositions that stretch over longer periods of time, and that where the divisions between the actual tracks are kind of random, and it's yeah. That was the first record that showed that. It's kind of the same with Pelagio. It's one piece of music. It was written as one piece of music, and only at the very end I went into it and said, okay, I'm going to set a song division mark here, but I could have also put it in another place. There's riffs that appear in the beginning of the record and then reappear at the end of the record, and yeah, I kind of like writing music that way, to look at it as a grand piece, and not in terms of like these micro structures of A B C and then bridge and then back to part A or something like that. So this does happen in a lot of our songs, but it's always embedded into like a larger structure somehow.
Okay. And then if we go back 2005, Aeolian, is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Aeolian. It's a bit of a sound change for the band back then with the guest vocals in there and that kind of bit of a heavier kind of sound with less electro instrumentation, I guess. Did you go in thinking, okay, we want to do something different with this one? Like,
That record was actually written together with Fluxion, the album that came out the year before. So both of
mm,
those records were written in the same writing session. And so a lot of material, like over 2 hours of material. And in the end, the material was quite diverse and eclectic. And it just felt like, okay, there's like the heavy stuff, and then there's the more orchestral stuff. And so we decided to separate it that way. And Aeolian ended up being the heavy album,
mm,
all the really heavy tracks we put on that one, and Fluxion became the one that has a lot more like classical instrumentation and like a lot more spheric parts and things like that. So it wasn't a decisive decision like now we're going to make a heavy record. We've always been writing songs like that, and just decided to kind of like channel it that way and separate it. And so in the end, yes, that became the heavy album.
mm,
And the vocal approach for this one was an experiment. We didn't really have a vocalist for a long time in the beginning. So the first album was instrumental. Then we had a bunch of different people, but none was in the band like permanently or fix.
mm,
And at that was the time we started writing Aeolians. So not really having a fixed vocalist, I was like, okay, I'm just going to ask some of my favorite vocalists in my favorite bands if they want to do a guest track. And got quite a few of them to come around. So we had Nate Newton from Converge and Doom Riders. We had Thomas Halbom from a Swedish band called Breach that I've been a huge fan of, massive influence for me. We've had Caleb Schofield, who sadly died a few years ago. He was in Cave-In back then. And we had like a lot of different people. In the end, I think there's like 10 or 11 vocalists, also some close friends of mine, but every track had like a different vocalist. And we weren't really thinking about how to do that live. We were just like, okay, we're just going to make the most amazing record ever with all these different voices screaming their balls out. And that's what became Alien.
Yeah, cool. And then 2010, you got heliocentric and anthropocentric. So yeah, heliocentric's about the internal battles with the Catholic Church within the Catholic Church, and anthropocentric is critiquing the fundamentalists' Protestant view of creationism. Yeah, is that something you're interested in? Like, obviously, like anti-religion, right? But like, is that something you're interested in, like looking and getting in deeper? I guess doing a bit of like seeing what's going on in there.
Yeah, for sure. I've always been intrigued by the larger realm of philosophy, really, and also where religion sits in this. And these two records are basically just tackling the legacy of Christianity. So heliocentric is kind of like almost chronological, starting with Firmament's like original text of the Bible, and then it goes to Copernicus and Galilei and their findings that Earth is actually not the center of the universe, and the impact that had on faith and belief. And then it's concluding with Darwin and his theory of evolution, and Richard Dawkins, the spearhead of modern atheism, basically. So it's kind of like doing kind of like a historical kind of approach, but I found that very interesting at that time. And and anthropocentric is continuing that. I mean, actually, all the Dawkins songs are are on anthropocentric. So it's kind of like a big construct of songs dealing with different aspects of Christianity and how fucked up it is, and its historic fucked upness and legacy.
Yeah. And a few of your album covers, including the latest one, have that sort of round orbital kind of thing going on. Is that does that have significance? Is that something to do with, the orbit of the Earth or something like that?
I guess there is it's a good question, man. I was never really consciously aware of it, but we did use that kind of like circular orbital theme on the Centric records, and again on Phanerozoic 2, where it was related more to like, we call it the collision motive, like these two planets colliding, and then on Holocene as well. And on Phanerozoic and Holocene, the reason why we use that is because it's for us, it's kind of like symbolizing the idea of eternal recurrence, which is the kind of like core of the lyrics of the Phanerozoic albums. And Holocene is as like the last chapter of this paleontological concept album, is again making reference to that idea, kind of. So that's why we used it there. But you're right, we actually used it on the Centrix records as well, and there it was making reference to Copernicus and Galilei and the whole, the idea is of the heliocentric worldview versus a worldview where Earth is not the center of the universe. So we've used that a lot. So I guess it is very related to our band. And also, if you look at our merch design, there's a lot of that stuff going on. So we're apparently quite obsessed with it.
Yeah. Talking about Phanerozoic, you recorded in Iceland, right? At is it Sun Larkin Studios?
We recorded drums in Iceland for both Phanerozoic records in early 2018. Yeah, that was Sund Laugen is a studio, I think, originally built by the Sigur Rós guys. They recorded their early album here. It's in an old swimming pool and an amazing drum room. And we decided to go there because it was recommended to us by a band I released on Pelagic, a Chinese band called Wang Wen, and they had been there. And the guitar player, she told me at his Berlin show that it's an amazing place, and we were looking for a studio at that time. So I checked it out and fell in love with it. And we've always liked to go to like these kind of like far away new places for us to start an album recording session, just to get in the right mindset, and to be out of your comfort zone and out of your home environment and boredom and just go somewhere else. So that's why it felt like a good match. And yeah, it was great. We actually tracked drums for both Phanerozoic records in 5 days there. Paul was super quick.
Mm.
And then the rest was recorded back in Berlin and at our own places.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, I love the idea of recording in a pool room. That sounds incredible. With the acoustics must have been amazing. Anyway,
yeah,
so
it was really cool.
Yeah. May this year, Holocene obviously came out. Did you go in with a different approach this time around? Was there something you were specifically trying to nail, I guess, before you started writing for this one?
Well, like talking about the recording setup or approach, it was very different because in the meantime, throughout the pandemic, we built up our rehearsal space in Berlin, which also comes with a small studio where we can record everything but drums. And that's what we did. So everything except drums were tracked in Berlin at our own place, and drums were tracked at our synth player, Peter's place, who owns a recording studio in the north of Germany, which is a perfect place for drums. Really nice, big 12 by 12 meters room with wooden floor and ceiling. So we've kind of become more independent and unfortunately, no longer need to go to Iceland, which is a bummer because we loved it. But it's more efficient for us to, really be self-sufficient and have our own place to record. So that was different. And writing-wise, it was also very different because this album was never meant to happen. It started taking shape when Peter, our synth guy, sent me ideas, like just synth ideas, in during mid-lockdown. And I really liked them, but I didn't think this was going to be an Ocean album because it was just synth stuff. And but yeah, it inspired me to do things with it. So I picked up my guitar and laid down tracks and programmed drums over it. And then at the end, it somehow did sound like the ocean. So we were like, okay, let's add another chapter to the Phanerozoic saga. So it was a bit of a different approach on the writing end as well.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Like tracks like Atlantic and Parabiosis, at the start they almost could be a Massive Attack or something, and then obviously it sounds like the ocean by the end of it. But yeah, they start off with that kind of like, oh, this is something different. It's cool.
We're all huge fans of Massive Attack, like everyone in the band. So it's something we've been talking about a lot, like how well Mezzanine has aged, and we're listening to that the band traveling a lot, and it's a heavy record as well, and in a different way, but there's this underlying heaviness under the surface somehow that has really touched all of us deeply, and maybe you can hear that on Holocene a bit.
Yeah, I think so. And even with Mezzanine, even visually, it's got that black and white bug thing on the front. It's all very dark, and yeah, it's cool. Yeah. So Karen Park is on Unconformities. How did that come about? And also, what was the sort of arranging process? Was there lots of instructions, or did she kind of have a hand in how it came out?
No, she did all that entirely by herself, and this is how we like to approach collaborations nowadays. It was the same with Jonas Renkse from Katatonia, who sang on Phanerozoic 1 and 2. We also just sent him the track and told him, go with it,
Cool.
And that was the same here. I've been a huge fan of Karen for many years. I know her through Arabrot, her band, who I release on Pelagic, and also her solo stuff now. And I've been wanting to ask her to do something for a long time, and now it just felt right with this track. It was, for us, it was kind of the leftover track of the recording session. So when Loic and me started recording vocals, we don't go about in a chronological order. We just pick a track, and start here and there. And in the end, that was the one track that was left over, and we had some ideas. I had some vocal ideas for that I tried with Loic, but it wasn't really sounding well. And he also had some ideas. And in the end, we were like, maybe we need some help for this track. And that's where Karen came in. And I sent her the track, and she was into it. And from there on, she completely took over and delivered what you hear on the record. And that totally transformed the track. I can tell you that if you listen to the instrumental version first, like we always had, and then you listen to this song, it's like, holy shit, it's a different world. So yeah, we were all super, super excited when we heard her approach to vocals there.
Yeah, I saw, talking instrumental, I saw you guys put out an instrumental version of the album in June. What made you decide to do that?
We've done that for pretty much all of our past releases since 2010. I always think it offers you a nice alternative perspective on the music. Like it makes you aware of certain things that otherwise you probably wouldn't be noticing because you're too distracted by the vocals, you know. And we are like that, like all 90% of our attention are on the vocals always. So when you take that away, there's like you realize a whole lot of other things are going on with the music. So I like to think of that not as competing, but just as alternative versions. And we also are strongly rooted in the whole post rock field, and we listen to a lot of instrumental music, and lots of bands like Explosions in the Sky and Mogwai were extremely important for my musical growing up, you know. And so it's also like a tribute to that. I think a lot of our music works very well instrumentally, and that is not to discredit Loic. Like I said, it's just different world, you know, and it's nice to have that to listen to alternatively as well.
Yeah, cool. The Sub-Atlantic video is really cinematic. Drew Storks directed. How did that come about? Like, did you guys have an idea in mind and go, you know, have a chat? This is sort of what we're looking for, or did somebody come in and say, we want to put this to what you guys have, you know?
Drew was our documentary filmer that we had out with us on the US tour with Catatonia. We did it in November, December. And the whole idea for that clip and also for Parabiosis kind of happened on that tour. So like it was all filmed on tour, and Sub-Atlantic was kind of like the second film that continues where Parabiosis left off. All of that happened on tour. So it was highly improvisational. We had a day to shoot in Montreal. We had a day to shoot in LA, and then the Sub-Atlantic clip was shot in Puerto Rico, where we had a show in early December and an off day. So it was all just on off days, and the whole plot and the whole idea of those clips evolved during the tour by just sitting down and talking about it and trying things. So it was really fun because it was so chaotic, you know, and just like going with the flow of where we were and what time we had available and trying to make the best out of that. And given that, we're all quite happy with how it turned out. I think Drew did a crazy job, and yeah, it was very, very difficult, you know, like with the limitations of budget and time to realize a clip like that.
No, it came out well. So away from the ocean for a bit, what are you listening to lately?
Good question. I really dig the new Spotlights record. It's fucking brilliant. So I've been listening a lot to that. I've been listening to a lot of electronic music, like a lot of contemporary Berlin down-tempo stuff, and Oriental infused techno. So quite far away from what we do with the label. And yeah, of course, a lot of things coming out on Pelagic. I'm happy to release my favorite music on my own label. So we have like the upcoming Spurf album, for example, a Norwegian instrumental rock band or post-rock band that is absolutely mind-blowing, really Godspeed You Black Emperor vibes at its best, and something I haven't heard in years. So yeah, lots of exciting things coming out. Also lots of exciting heavy albums like the new Brickville record I've been listening to a lot. And yeah,
that's cool.
Just some bits and pieces.
Yeah. With the label, what's your kind of input with bands? Like, are they just going, you're saying do what you want and then grabbing it, or are you kind of like, maybe you should change the image this much or the mix, or, you know, what's the sort of input on with your side?
It really depends. Most of the time we just trust our bands to be very self-critical and deliver only outstanding quality and just like make the right decisions themselves. I don't want to become a producer too much and get too involved, but there are cases where I enjoy that. So it depends a little bit on the bands also, and like how firm they are in their vision and if they want help or not, and if I feel like I can contribute something meaningful to it. What happens occasionally is that we reject artwork. We're very anal with that. And if we feel that the artwork isn't good enough or is middle of the road or it doesn't represent the album, then that is a discussion to be had. Like we really want to release only things that we support 100% in terms of, you know, visual appearance and packaging. For me, that's an integral part of art, just as the music. And as if you don't pay the same meticulous attention to making that outstanding, then it's not a release that should happen on Pelagic. So there we encroach a little more than with the actual music.
Yeah. In 2020, the fossil, I'm gonna stuff this name up, I'm sure. Ophiocantha oceani. The
Yeah.
was named in honor of the band. Tell us about that. How did that come about?
Yeah, that happened because two scientists and ocean fans, just decided to name this newly discovered species after us, being fans of the band, and
Hmm.
that was that was a really nice treat. I met them at a concert in Luxembourg. They're from that area actually, and they already told me about that before it actually happened. And yeah, they're doing research, and they found a new species, and they named it in our honor. So that's fucking amazing. And
Hmm.
actually, the same thing happened this year again. Another German scientist and paleontologist named an insect wing from the early Permian era after us. I think he knows those two guys, so they've been probably talking about it. So yeah, we have two fossils named after us now, which is super cool for the nerds out there. So like us.
Yeah, it's very cool. So yeah, the tour, it looks like you're playing a bunch of shows like South Africa to Australia and then the Czech Republic, Poland, like all over. Um, how's the prep going? You guys been jamming or that kind of thing?
Yeah, we're in the middle of summer festival season, so we're
Hmm.
rehearsing between festivals. Like this week, on Saturday we're playing Brutal Assault in Czech Republic, so we always have to get out of the rehearsal zone again and just play gigs. But yeah, we're rehearsing Holocene tracks, which we completely forgot how to play after recording. That
Hmm.
always happens, so we
Hmm.
kind of like start from scratch and have to relearn everything. And yeah, that's the process we're going through right now. And then we're heading off to Arctingen next week and a festival in Budapest called Fekete Zai. It's going to be nice. And then to South Africa and straight from there to Australia. So that wasn't really planned. Like South Africa's been in the making for a long time, but Australia came up on relatively short notice, and it's somehow we managed to fit it like into the schedule. Because then when we come back, we only have like a week off, and then we start our European co-headline tour with This Will Destroy You, and that also involves lots of preparations because we want to play a new set list, so it's all a bit tight right now.
Hmm.
But we're
Yeah.
looking forward to coming back to Australia. We've been looking for the right occasion to do that. We're going to headline next year. We will be back with another tour, but this is the occasion to really reach the metal crowd with this package, I think, and play some big shows in the big cities. So it makes a lot of sense for us. We were actually already deep into planning our headlining tour when this offer came up, and decided to do this first now and then look at headlining later next year.
Yeah, nice. That's cool. So the band's been around for a long time, obviously, and changed and evolved over time. Where do you see you guys in like 10 years? Like, can you sort of picture like what sort of changes are next, that kind of thing?
Not really, man. I don't look that far ahead. I don't even know if I'm going to be alive in 10 years. Hopefully so.
Mm.
I'm still keen to write music, but yeah, I really look mostly at the imminent future, like
Mm.
what lies immediately ahead of me. Right now, that's Australia and South Africa, and then a couple more little trips this year with the band, and then we have another record that's ready to be recorded that I wrote at the same time when I was working on Holocene with Peter, but
Mm.
we just decided to focus on Holocene first. And yeah, and now hopefully after it's out, we will find the time to record that second album. And yeah, that's as far as I can see right now.
Yeah, that's cool. Any idea when the second album? Are we talking like late next year or not that
No
soon?
idea.
Or... Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, we haven't started recording it yet. It's written.
Mm.
I'm very excited about it. It's a bit more, bit less electronic and a bit more rock, I would
Okay.
say.
Yeah.
But we haven't started recording it yet, and this is always like we're very quick with writing, very slow with recording. So this takes time, and we won't have much time in the upcoming months because of all the touring.
Mm.
So hopefully we'll record next year. I think that's the plan, anyways, to record next year, and then it'll probably be like a 2025 release, realistically.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Cool. Well, look, Robin, thanks heaps for your time. It's been great. And yeah, have a blast on the tour, man. I'm sure you will.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks,
you.
man. Have a good one.
Take care.
Yeah.